Hola a todos, me llamo Reina y yo estaba estudiando en la Universidad Fidelitas en San José, Costa Rica. Durante mi tiempo allá, um, yo entendí mucho de la lengua y también tengo memorias de Costa Rica que van a quedar conmigo por toda mi vida. So I wanted to start off this video in Spanish a little bit. Just because I'm going to do this video in different parts. I'm going to go through all the competencies and some of the student objectives that we should have completed throughout this course. So I'm just going to go through each section and speak my mind a little bit on what I've learned through this course and what I've learned through my study abroad. So that introduction just said a little bit about where I was studying abroad and how my memories will last with me for my life. So through my immersion, I was actually really lucky enough to go to Costa Rica. I was there for a little bit over 2 months. And I learned a lot of like Costa Rican slang. And I know like a lot of languages have these things as like slangs in their own language, especially Spanish. There's a lot of regional dialects, like regional vocabulary. So I was in Central America, and some things that are specific to Costa Rica. One of the words, obviously y'all have heard this before, but pura vida, it's kind of hard to explain because it's hello, it's goodbye, it's have a nice day, it's I hope you're doing well. It has a lot of different meanings. And some other words like that, one word is compañeros, that's like companions, basically, is how it translates to English. And so a lot of words get shortened down in Spanish. So instead of saying like I'm with my companions, you could say like soy con mis compas, or estoy con mis compas, like I'm with my friends. So they just shorten compañeros to compas. And then another one was my, which I heard it a lot. It sounds like my, like possessive, but it's spelled M-A-E, and it basically is like bro or dude or man, but you can use it in like for any gendered person. And so instead of being like yo, it was incredible, or like man, it was incredible, you'd be like my, era increíble. Like it was so funny because I met this one Tico person and he literally said my every other sentence, like my no estaba allá, my todo estaba cerrado, my. It was just funny to hear just some Costa Rican slang and just like different regional vocabulary. And then one of the student objectives for multilingual compatibility is communicate cross-culturally even though there is no common language. And so I'll touch on this a little bit more in the positive leadership section, but I think even though we don't have a common language around the world, it's kind of crazy that a lot of other countries learn English. So a lot of foreign countries speak English just as well as they speak their native language. And so I think it's kind of a privilege to having been born in the US and having English be our first language. So I really wanted to learn another language. One, so that I could communicate with more people, and two, so I could help more people. But I just want to say that cross-culturally, kindness is worldwide. Kindness has no language, patience has no language, and problem solving also has no language. I do genuinely believe like with kindness and patience and problem solving skills, you don't need to know the same language as someone to treat them respectfully, to know where they're coming from, and just, not to push them aside, not to disrespect them. So yeah, I think although we don't all speak the same languages, and although like a lot of us were studying different languages, kindness and smiles go a long way. So that concludes the multilingual compatibility. So next I'm going to talk about the next competency, which is intercultural competence. The student objectives are demonstrate an extraordinary respect for humanity, exhibit high levels of self-awareness and empathy, and 3, adapt to uncertain situations and openness adapt to uncertain situations with openness and flexibility. So from our peer topics, something that really stood out to me for this section was Hofstede's six-dimensional model. I think it's important to note here, like, we shouldn't use research on our countries as hard, just like this is the way it must be because this is what my research says, but instead we should use it as kind of a guide, use it as somewhat of a judgment, use it as like a warm up. This isn't the full deal, this isn't all the information you need, but it can give you an idea about where you're going. So the ones that stood out to me the most, the ones that were the most impactful from Hofstede's six-dimensional model were the individual versus collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, and long-term versus short-term orientation. And then the last three are, those first three are the ones I'll talk about in a second. And the last three are indulgence, masculine versus femininity, and power distance. Like I said, the last student objective is adapt to uncertain situations with openness and flexibility. And I feel like Hofstede's six-dimensional model help us gain a general idea about what the country we're going to is going to be like. And I found in our last week's discussion when we were talking about how countries reacted to the coronavirus pandemic, a lot of it kind of went back to this model, and a lot of it, like, I wasn't making that connection, but I think this model is like a good baseline for how a country and like generally how the people in the country work. So, for example, Costa Rica is more of a collectivist society, and they also are more long-term oriented. So I was reading somebody else's post from Costa Rica, and they were saying that Costa Rica responded pretty fast to the pandemic when there was not many cases in the country, and they were taking it pretty seriously like once they had just a few cases. And this is probably, like, we can say that this is because, one, they're more collectivist than the United States, and obviously if we're comparing how Costa Rica and the United States reacted to the virus in the pandemic, they reacted very differently. It's because even on Hofstede's model, especially, the United States is very short-term, very individualistic, and Costa Rica is very long-term, collectivist. So basically, Costa Rica it kind of just like tied together, like they're more collectivist and they're more long-term, so they're gonna try their best to keep everyone safe. Collectivist society, they're working together to keep everyone safe. And two, they care not so much about the immediate release and like the immediate things that they can gain, but more about the long-term orientation on how could this affect their country, how can, like, we need to take this time now so that the future is better, not necessarily like, oh, let's keep Costa Rica open so that the college kids can keep getting drunk at the club or whatever, but instead they were like, no, we're gonna shut things down quickly so that, because they're focusing more on the long term rather than the immediate. So just in general, like, I would really encourage everyone to go back to Hofstede's six-dimensional model and like maybe research a little bit about your personal the country where you're studying abroad, just because although there are outliers, you can't generalize a whole population, you can't generalize a whole country. It did really line up to a lot of the other topics we were talking about, and I found it surprising because I didn't really make that connection until a little bit later after reading other people's I think it was the ITAs from last week. So yeah, that's the competency, intercultural competence. And the next one we're going to talk about is positive leadership. So the next competency is positive leadership. This is something I'm really passionate about. I might have mentioned in some of my other videos. Also, maybe some of y'all are just watching my video for the first time. I was a PeerJax mentor on campus, so I helped freshmen transition into college. And so we work a lot on positive leadership and just being a good leader in general. And so I want to start by saying a good leader is also an even better follower, because you can't just have somebody who is only good at giving out rules and giving out things to do, because that person also needs to take feedback within themselves. So one personal example I have is I've been working at Subway for way too long, like plus 4 years. And so I do think like I am really good at my job, but I know every day there are chances for growth. And so as much as since I've been there for so long, I'm kind of like unofficial like assistant manager. Basically, like, I do tell people what to do a lot, but also when people ask me to do things, I'm ready for them. I'm like, you need help, you need me to assist you, let me come help you. So a good leader is also a good follower. And then one of the student objectives is understand personal beliefs, passions, and strengths. So I feel like this one is very personal. It's like the positive leader within yourself. And so, especially going abroad, it was kind of hard to hold tight to my personal beliefs and passions, just because I was, one, in a different country that was, totally different than what I was used to, and two, I was traveling with 16 other people that I had never met. So, and it's like here in the US, I can like choose my friends, I can choose who I hang out with, I choose my roommates. And, obviously I would pick people who like share beliefs and passions with me. But while I was there, I was surrounded by people who I'd never met and maybe didn't have as much in common with me as I would have liked. But that's life. Can't always pick your best friends at work and all those things. But it's definitely a good strong suit to be able to hold on to those things. And when it comes to understanding other people's personal beliefs, passions, and strengths, I think the key word is understanding. So we really have to come to a place of understanding and not necessarily agreement. So for example, when I was in Costa Rica, a lot of people there were Catholic, including my host family. And a lot of times, like, they weren't ever really pushing their religion on me, which is something I found really respectful, because that's something that my grandma has always done my whole life, was like, be Catholic, and I'm like, no. But the thing is that I come from a point of understanding. I don't agree with everything from Catholicism. I'm not going to follow Catholicism personally. However, I understand it. And I understand religion in general, and I understand why people follow religion. I understand why people use religion and practice religion in their life. And so the big point here is understanding and not necessarily agreeing. The second point is practice resilience in the face of obstacles. I think everyone is going to talk about the same thing at this point, but we are surviving through some crazy history right now. Like, when I first got sent home, I was feeling really kind of just like, I was in my own head and I was focusing on me, and I was like, I can't believe my study abroad got canceled. I can't believe I have to go home. I can't believe I have to leave Costa Rica. And then I got back into the US and I realized a lot of people are being affected by this. So, anyways, a little bit off topic, but I want to like give everyone a pat on the back, give everyone a little virtual high five. We are doing the damn thing. We're like living through some crazy shit right now. And this is a big obstacle. Like, some of us didn't even get to go abroad. Some of us are maybe not taking enough credit. Some of us are maybe not graduating on time. Like, I can't believe that. If some of y'all have like younger siblings and like they're not in school, like, everyone in the world right now like is going through some sort of obstacle with this virus. And so I just want to applaud all of y'all. If you're making these final videos, hopefully you've made it through the course. Hopefully you have a decent enough grade or a pass. But yeah, we have all been really resilient in the face of this obstacle that is the pandemic we are living through. So great job to all of you for pushing through, because I know it's been hard for me. And thanks for all of your Wellness Week forums, because that was also really helpful. So yeah, that's the second point. The third point is build a toolkit of peace-building strategies to respond to conflict. So my peer topic was actually conflict resolution strategies. So I'm pretty familiar on this topic. And I'm not going to make a whole nother video about conflict resolution strategies right now, but some points that I have are, one, reading a room. So when you're going to come up to someone, if they already look really down, maybe it's not the best time to give them some like constructive criticism. And two, when you are trying to create peace or respond to a conflict, come from the point of wanting for someone to improve or wanting for someone to do better. You don't want to tear anyone down. you know, you want to like build people up, you want to keep the peace, you want to keep the positivity. So when you are coming to trying to resolve a conflict, I would say focus on the peace and stay calm, just because sometimes trying to resolve conflict can turn into a fight really quickly. But if you stay calm and you communicate and you take deep breaths and you respond instead of reacting, it's going to help you get through that conflict a little more smoothly. And once that conflict is resolved, you can continue peace building and peacemaking and positivity keeping. So, yeah, that concludes positive leadership. Okay, the next competency goal for this class is community networks. So, one of the student objectives I wanted to touch on for this competency was the second one, which says practicing methods to build and maintain relationships. So, I want to break that down into two parts. One, maintaining relationships with people in general. So, especially I feel like this course was developed because of the pandemic. So I'm going to kind of relate this to the pandemic, but also you can use this in general. Call your mom. She probably misses you. Text your friends. FaceTime people, especially people that you, like friends that you made back in your host country. Like, reach out to them and talk to them. Do FaceTime, do voice calls, do text, and just keep updated with them. And then the other one that I wanted to talk about in maintaining relationships was maintaining a relationship with your host country. So this is something that I think a lot of us, especially if we went abroad, it was bittersweet to have gotten a taste of what our country was like and having to leave so soon. So some tips that I have are, even though we are in Flagstaff or wherever you are in the US, surround yourself with culture from your country. So I went to Costa Rica, so I actually bought masa at the store the other day, and I've been making like homemade tortillas. So we can like maintain relationships with our host country through food, through TV, through music. Some recommendations: if anybody was in a Spanish-speaking country, you should watch Elite on Netflix. It's super dramatic. It's about like people in high school or college. But it was originally filmed in Spanish, so when I watch it, I usually I listen in Spanish and I have English subtitles because it's a little bit too fast for me. And then share music with your friends. Like, if anybody was in Costa Rica with me, send me your Spanish playlist. I'll share mine with you. And that's another way to, one, connect with the people who were in your host country, but also, like, stay connected with the culture from your host country. So like we are maintaining these relationships, people. I'm too sad to say that I had to leave Costa Rica, and I don't want to say that I forgot everything and I completely left it behind. I want to really bring back some of the culture and keep it into my own life. So that's my advice for you, and some things that I've learned through this course. A lot of people have shared how they're maintaining their relationship with their host country and how they're keeping in touch with friends here in the US while this whole pandemic is going on. And then one of the other student objectives is develop a sense of belonging that fosters engagement across networks. So I know this one says across networks, but for some of you who are like at home with your family, or in my case, I'm here in Flagstaff with my roommates, I definitely would say like engage in something that's not just, because it is easy to get like stuck on your phone and stuck on like FaceTime and texting and Instagram. Like, take a second away from that and like play a board game, or like go for a walk, or cook a meal together. I know some of you are probably like sick of being whoever you're in quarantine with, but like keep those connections strong, keep those connections peaceful. And then another thing I want to focus on this point is like fostering engagement. So I love like when people post like Instagram polls or Instagram stories, or like the like votes on Twitter. Like, keep things interesting, keep things engaging. I know people from some of the people who are in charge of this course created this, like, we did a Zoom meeting at the beginning of this course, and there was a lot of like interactive things. Like, on your phone you could like type in your submission and then it would show up on the screen. Comment down below if you were in that. Hey, extra credit. So yeah, I would say like, oh, another thing across networks you can do is like people are doing like Netflix watch parties where like you can all like video chat but watch the same Netflix show at the same time. So yeah, get creative, explore new ideas, have more Zoom parties, invite me. I'm just kidding. So yeah, that is going to conclude community network. All right, so we have made it to our last competency for this class, which is interdisciplinary thinking. So the first student objective is discover the nexus of subjects, language, and cultures. So, not gonna lie, had to look up what nexus means, and it's a great transition. Nexus is a connection or series of connections linking two or more things. And before like looking at this definition, when I read just over the competency, the definition, and the student objectives, the first thing that came to my mind was intersectionality. And intersectional and like intersectionality is one of those words that I like love using. I feel so smart when I use it, like she's educated, but sometimes I like try and use it where it's like not, it doesn't make sense. So after reading this definition of nexus, I realized like it totally works. So intersectionality, kind of just like to sum up like a kind of confusing word and like a confusing like idea, everything is everything. Like we are all connected in so many different ways. So like for example, like we just have so many different identities. So like me, I am a woman, and like somebody else can be a woman, but like I am a Hispanic and American woman, and somebody else could be like an African American, or you know, just a woman from a different part of the world. And like one thing we have in common is that we are both women. And so intersectionality is just like, I don't know, it kind of makes me believe, like, especially for me being a communication studies major, like I genuinely find it really easy communicating with a lot of different types of people. And like even the craziest people, I feel like I'm like, we must have at least one thing in common. And like that's what intersectionality is. It's like we are made up of so many different things. Like your religion, like this thing says, discover the nexus of subjects, language, cultures. Like we are all like unique people with unique languages and unique cultures, but some of us like share those things. Like another part of me is I'm like from Southern California, and I know a lot of other you guys share that with me, but like we have our own things as well. So, intersectionality. Everything is everything. We're all kind of connected at one pinpoint or another. It kind of makes me like, when I visually think about it, I'll like draw like, it's kind of like a spider web. And so I'm like, this is me, this is my spider web, and like let's say, like I said, like this is F for female, and like somebody else is over here and their spider web connects to mine. Anyways, this is a little bit of like a airy topic for me. It's hard to like create like words, and anyways, it's hard to communicate. Think beyond perceived limitations. So this also made me go back to Hofstede's six-dimensional model. Like I said, like we should do research before entering other countries, but we need to like think beyond that. Like we need to understand that those are generalizations, and so like we need to think beyond the perceived limitations. Like and then the last point is apply diverse knowledge to create innovative solutions. So this whole course was filled with so many peer topics, and I genuinely feel like even though I didn't travel to a lot of your host countries, like I learned a lot about them. And so this course kind of helped me develop more of a broader knowledge on the world in general and countries all around the world, and how different but unique we are at the same time. Like I just love like how like the juxtaposition, like we are so different but we are so the same at the same time. So this class has given me the diverse knowledge to create innovative solutions, and that is what I would like to conclude on. I don't think we need any questions for this video. My question for y'all is like, how are you doing? You have to reply to this video, so like let me give you something to reply to. Which of the competencies was hardest for you to understand or to talk about? For me, it was definitely this last one. And 2, how did y'all like this course? And after completing this course, Are y'all curious about studying anywhere or studying abroad again or just visiting another country? Tell me about your curiosities and your dreams and your travel goals. I'd love to hear about them. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week. And hopefully summer is still happening, and I hope you all have a good summer. All right,